You know, he's normal. He's kind of just like us. And this is a guy who owns a lot of buildings around the world and is a billionaire, but that's his base, right? That's the people who feel like they're getting screwed in this country. Aly Legge is with us now. She is Veterans for Trump, and I had a chance to talk to her earlier before the speech. You were there at CPAC. So, Aly, what were you thinking? What were you hearing as he was speaking there? How was it for you?
I think this is just a huge example of his strong leadership, right? Right now, we are seeing weakness in our Congress. We're seeing weakness everywhere in our government, from school boards all the way to Capitol Hill. His speech was a show of strong leadership and very cognitive, of his cognitive ability, for sure.
It was. So let me ask you about this. You were there. It was an hour and a half. To you, do you think that's too long? Were you engaged the whole time? Did you enjoy it the whole time, or were you kind of looking at your watch?
Absolutely. Everybody was engaged. You could hear a pin drop at certain times. He was very funny, very energetic. He would make jokes and people would reply. We had a couple of groups of young kids that would scream Trump, 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 or USA, and everybody was very engaged in what he was talking about. And the stories that he was telling were very important as well.
So the story he told about the cops being assaulted in Times Square in New York City is really an indictment on the criminal justice system, which we know in this country, at least the appearance is, it's a two-tiered justice system, right? And certainly with what Republicans have gone through, what he is going through personally. Here's what he said during the speech today.
The more desperate the Biden regime's evil persecution against us has become, they become more and more violent. The Stalinist show trials being carried out at the Joe Biden orders set fire not only to our system of government, but to hundreds of years of Western legal tradition. You see what's happening. They've replaced law, precedent, and due process with a rabid mob of radical left Democrat partisans masquerading as judges and juries and prosecutors and executioners.
I want to bring in Jeffrey Lord for a second, columnist with the American Spectator. So, Jeffrey, that one he read. He wanted to get that one directly to the people and say it correctly as he wanted to say it. That, you know, I think, again, people, ordinary citizens are seeing what's happening to him, and they're like, he's right, I could be next, too.
It is not an accident that his poll numbers go up every time they run one of these indictments against him. This is becoming a real problem. And, you know, the laughable notion, I wrote a column the other day, the Washington Post ran a story about how he was really authoritarian, and that's what you could expect. And I thought, excuse me? It's the Biden administration that has turned the Department of Justice loose on Donald Trump, the only administration in history that has tried to imprison its opponent. I mean, these people are seriously authoritarian right there in their gut, as it were. So he is right, and the American people have caught on to this big time, and they're responding.
So he, again, of course, he looks up to the podium, and the fake news media, as he says, they're all up there. They're all going to twist what I say as they normally do. Here's what he had to say about the, as he says, the fake news media. Play 4.
And a declining, crooked Joe Biden. He's the crookedest, most incompetent president in the history of our country. Will soon have us losing World War III. We won't even be in World War III. We'll be losing World War III with weapons the likes of which nobody has ever seen before. These are the stakes of this election. Our country is being destroyed, and the only thing standing between you and its obliteration is me.
So I picked the wrong one. That was a cut I wanted to play a little later, but that's a good one, too, because that really is setting up. It's setting up today in the primary in South Carolina, which we'll talk about in a second. And it's really setting up the stakes of Trump versus Biden when it actually becomes Trump versus Biden soon. Jesse Jane, today, South Carolina, they're voting. They've already had early voting. it is likely Trump is going to win and win big. And by the way, we have coverage tonight beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern of the South Carolina primary, so make sure you keep it right here on Newsmax. Assuming he wins today, there are some more states coming up in the following days before Super Tuesday. I'm wondering if tonight, if Nikki Haley loses, as expected, by 20, 25, 30 points, is her speech her goodbye speech or not?
I don't think it'll be her goodbye speech. I happen to be on the executive committee in Washington, D.C., and guess where she's going to show up on the first day of our caucus, March 1st. Nikki Haley will be here. There are 19 delegates in Washington, D.C. to be won, 16 alternate delegates. That is more delegates than, get this, Delaware. That is, or was it Rhode Island? I may have those mixed up, but they're quite close. I think it's one has 17 and we have 19. She wants to win something, and as possible in the swamp itself, she can get those activated that really can't stand President Trump, who happen to be registered as Republican, only because they know it's going to cut off their stream of money. And we all know that he doesn't care for the establishment too much. However, there is a strong support, believe it or not, in Washington, D.C. still, because there's 23,000 registered Republicans. And like myself, we're not all the swamp. I want to say something very quickly, though, about those wars. Look how Joe Biden finally came out 2 years later and said that he was going to put sanctions on Russia. Why didn't you do that from day one? We're not serious. We don't have a serious White House. It prolongs wars, and this is what people have always been suspicious of. He has tried to tell Benjamin Netanyahu not to fight Hamas, ceasefire with a terrorist organization, as if there is a ceasefire to be made. That was on October 6th. Everything this White House has done has never gone in to resolve it immediately. It's been a drip policy, which exacerbates it, causes it to get worse. And then the enthusiasm for the Ukraine has wavered, and the enthusiasm for Israel starts to waver. They don't want to do anything right on the money, the right time, because they're trying to appease to too many masters and keep everybody happy. That's not how you can run this. You have to ensure that you stand on the right side of freedom. You have to ensure that you push back on those that are authoritarian and want to destroy your country, such as Hamas, such as Iran, such as Russia.
Aly, as a veteran, he talks often, and he certainly did today, about dealing with the military, support for the troops. He always loves to tell stories about, when he's with soldiers. How does that make you feel when he's talking about a really important part of our country, our military, that unfortunately feels probably under this administration, when, Joe Biden is showing up when they're bringing in caskets of dead soldiers, and he's sitting there looking at his watch like, how much longer do I got to stay here? It is a big contrast between the two within the military. How does it make you feel when he's telling stories about the military?
Well, it makes us feel encouraged, right? It makes us feel like we're being heard. Military people always look for strong leadership, and like I said earlier, we are experiencing weak leadership from school board all the way to Capitol Hill, and every single veteran and every single elected representative has taken the same exact oath, and that is to uphold our Constitution and to protect the rights of the people and to serve the people. We do not currently have that, and if we are not actively trying to rebuild that in the image of liberty, we will lose it. We are always one generation away from losing it, which is why it is so important for our moms to be involved and so important for our veterans to be involved, because while we have taken that oath and we are no longer in military, our oath has never expired. It doesn't have an expiration date, so we need to make sure that we stand up and make sure that we vote for Donald Trump this November.
Aly, thanks for joining us today. I hope you had a good time there.
Of course I did. Thank you so much.
All right. I want to continue. And, so one of the things Trump was talking about, too, and he makes fun of it, but it's a real issue. I mean, it's